Activision presents a smashing blast from the past. Developed by vicarious visions. It's Crash Bandicoot!
Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Randomize and this is Crash Bandicoot, the Sane Trilogy. And I've been waiting to play this game ever since it's been announced. Crash is, as a PlayStation 1 owner, Crash Bandicoot is the game that I played so often as a child, and knowing that these games are going to be remade, I so wanted to see what Vicarious Visions and the guys would do with this entire remodel. So this trilogy is essentially taking the first three games in the trilogy from Naughty Dog, one of my favourite game developers, as I'm sure you know from my Jack and my Uncharted playthroughs. But we have Crash Bandicoot here. We have Crash Bandicoot 1, the original, we have Crash Bandicoot 2, Cortex Strikes Back, and Crash Bandicoot 3 Warped, all remade from the ground up in beautiful PS4 graphics, and it's going to be absolutely amazing, and hopefully it captures I'm sure it will. I have utter faith in this, in the developer. I have utter faith in this game and its ability to bring me back to the times where I began, when I started gaming and stuff, and how I came all the way to here and being able to record these onto YouTube and stuff like that. So let's just have a quick look. And before we actually start, I'm actually just going to go through, this game's been out obviously for like a few days and stuff, and it has been absolute torture watching YouTubers and reviewers get to play this game, and I've wanted to watch, and at the same time I haven't because I want to keep it for myself. There's so much great stuff that I want to play about this game. And now it's finally here, and so I thought, obviously I'm sure other YouTubers have spoken about how Crash has been their childhood and all this sort of stuff, but I wanted to give you my perspective and stuff like that. So my first game of the Crash series was this one.
It's Crash Bandicoot 2, Cortex Strikes Back.
I love the Cortex voice actor, he does such a great job. Oh, the music sounds amazing already. This is just proving me right. Anyway, I used to be, back when I had a PS1, back when I was probably 9, 10 maybe, I think, I used to play loads of racing games. So I had, maybe even younger actually, but I used to play racing games. So I had Formula 1 1999, or what a game that was. I had V-Rally, I love that game. I had a Gran Turismo, I think the original Gran Turismo. I had maybe even a Toka Touring Cars game as well. So I had lots of racing games, and I remember going out to buy a new game with my dad, and I found this racing game and I was like, let's get this. And my dad was like, you've got so many racing games, why get another one? Why not get something new? So he pointed out another game on the shelf, and that game was this one, Crash Bandicoot 2 Cortex Strikes Back. And I played this game and I fell in love. And then have loved Crash and have loved platformer games ever since first playing Crash 2. And I remember being abysmal at Crash 2. I remember being terrified of in level 1 and level 4. You have pits where you fall in and there are rats crawling around, and you have to defeat all the rats in order to get out of the pit. And I used to be terrified. I used to run around like a headless chicken just spamming the spin button and would inevitably die. So I used to pass off my controller to someone else because I couldn't do those bits. I remember the first time I managed to see the official ending, the one where you've got all of the secrets and finding out where all the secrets were in that game. Crash 2 is such a great game. Now, it's probably not the one I played the most, because the next game I had was this one.
It's Crash Bandicoot.
Yes, that's exactly how it should sound. I love, I remember Crash Warped. So, this theme, the Warp Room theme, gets stuck in your head. It gets stuck in my head for about a year probably. I loved that music so much, and I love. Yeah, they keep it exactly the same because the way the guys warped. It's exactly how it should be. So Crash 3, obviously with the time trial aspect in Crash 3 and some of the additions that they made, has meant that Crash 3 has always been the one that I've played the most. And previously I've said it's my favourite. Between 2 and 3 is close now. 3 has always had the replayability. 2 I think has ultimately the stronger levels, with 3 sort of varying more into slightly more gimmicky levels. You see a lot more vehicle sections and stuff like that, which certainly isn't a bad thing, but I think Crash 2 really nails down the basic Crash gameplay and makes that fantastic. But Crash 3 has some fabulous levels in it as well. Tomb Raider is one of my utter favourite levels in any video game. I love that level, and yeah, no, it's great. And I remember the first time I got 105% on Crash Bandicoot 3. I remember the first time I got, and even more recently, because I still come back to the Crash games, because why wouldn't you come back to the Crash games? They don't seem to age. I mean, obviously the graphics do, but at the same time the gameplay is still as great as it will always ever be, and I love it so much. And I just, you know, I come back to these games still, and being able to come back to them in this fashion and actually sort of see it in this brand new PS4 gloss is amazing for someone like me. But yeah, no, I remember coming back to this game probably about a year, maybe 2 years ago now, and I came back to Crash 3, and I had a aim of getting every single platinum relic, and I nailed it. I got every platinum. I was so happy. I felt like, you know, that was one of my crowning achievements almost as in like video games. And that's what Crash is. Crash just creates these memories and these, you know, these feelings of achievement as well. So obviously I had Crash 2 and I had Crash 3. The last game I got, which I actually borrowed in inverted commas, because in the end I don't think I ever gave it back, is a game, the original. I knew it was around, but I could not find it anywhere, and so I asked one of my friends who had Crashed the original and asked if I could take his game, and indeed he let me. And so we go back to our original, the original Crash Bandicoot, which is the one we're going to be starting with. And this is brutal. I mean, I sucked at Crash Bandicoot. Like I completed Crash 2 and Crash 3, but I sucked at Crash Bandicoot. The lack of a slide, the lack of certain abilities mean that it's much harder to go backwards as it is to go forwards. And in the end, the level design and everything else about the game is just far stricter. But all that means is it just means it's a hell of a lot more satisfying to complete. And having 100%, I have 100% Crash, fully completed Crash Bandicoot the way it has to be done in the old PS1 version, which is through going through every level without dying and getting all the boxes. I have done that, and that is one of my favorite and one of the proudest, you know, I was so proud of myself having done that. And that's just what Crash does. Like, they're not the most complex of platformers. I don't think that they're probably not even the best of the platformers. You know, if we go into like, you know, we can talk about Mario and all these other things. But what does Crash do? There's just so much character and so much joy in what Crash brings, I think. And so I hope you're going to enjoy coming through this with me, because I am really going to enjoy playing this game. And we're going to start off with a new game here, Crash Bandicoot. The Akaraku mask already.
But Dr. Cortex, we haven't determined the cause of past failures.
Moron! This Bandicoot will be my general, and he will lead my Cortex commandos to world domination. This time, I shall reign triumphant. We are closer than ever before. Quickly, into the vortex.
Dr. Cortex, the vortex is not ready. We have no idea what it could do.
Failure again. Capture him!
Uh-oh.
Prepare the female Bandicoot.
So there we have it. It's a very simple setup. We have obviously the evil Dr. Neo Cortex, who's using his machine to create sort of militarized versions of the various wild animals that we see around. A lot of the enemies in the game are sort of based around these sort of wild animal creations. He tries to create a Bandicoot. It goes completely wrong, and in the end we end up with this guy, Crash Bandicoot, he's got so much character to him. And I think that's what, that's why he's lasted so long. It's not because, the games were, 10 out of 10, everything, and all this stuff. What it was that Crash had character. Crash had, just a great, just everything about him had a load of character to it, and it's great, and it really comes across. So, anyway, what will we be doing in Crash Bandicoot? Well, you spend your time jumping, spinning, collecting lives and collecting Wumpa Fruit. So the lives system is obviously in place. It works as any life system does. If you die, you lose a life. We have the Wumpa Fruit, which you get from the boxes. The Wumpa Fruit, collect 100 of them and you gain another life. You'll often also see, obviously there are checkpoints throughout the level which allow you to obviously come back if you respawn. You see the mask by my side, that's Aku Aku, friendly sort of shaman mask. He is a protective totem. He essentially, if I was to get hit by any of these enemies, Aku Aku would protect me and I would merely lose my Aku. The fact that he's golden right now, as opposed to sort of the sort of more wooden looking one that you'll find in originally in all the boxes, is because we have collected 2, and so we can be hit twice. And then this is what happens if we collect 3. You saw that in one of the hints, and that's a really nice little touch actually, if they've actually continued that. So sort of put those hints in a lot of the levels. I think that's a really nice touch, just to sort of, have some useful tips just down there, because I don't think that's, Okay, so as you can see we had a box bridge there. By running across it with our invincibility we could actually break most of the boxes. You can obviously do that the usual jumping method. I'm pretty sure we'll have lots more box bridges to actually try and jump over. So you do need to backtrack in order to get the gems. So the other thing you do in this game is you collect gems. And the way you collect gems is you break all of the boxes within a given level. So in this case there are 49 of them, as we can see here. That is the 49th of the boxes, and we collect our gem. So that is the first level in the game that actually requires us to backtrack, because obviously you have 2 separate paths, they just split up. If we had continued going back the left-hand path, we'd have got back to that T-junction. And there's only another enemy down there, so we didn't need to worry about the extra, that. And so we collect our first gem. And then the other thing that has been introduced, so a new feature that wasn't in the original game, is that we can now have relics as well. So in Crash Bandicoot 3, relics were introduced. A time trial relic was essentially get through the level as fast as possible. You have time boxes scattered throughout the level, which if you break, stop time for a certain amount of, for 1, 2 or 3 seconds. Try and get to the end as fast as possible, and if you beat a certain time, which in this case is, so we need to get 34 seconds in order to win a Sapphire relic, and then the faster and faster you can either get Sapphire, Gold or Platinum. And what Vicarious Visions have decided to do is they've taken that sort of extra replayability factor from Crash 3 and added it into Crash 1 and 2. And that's really great. I think it's a great idea. A lot of these levels aren't built for speedrunning, which is going to be interesting. There's a lot of sort of timed things that you sort of have to, make sure you're getting the timing right, which I think could go very wrong on a speedrun. But for this general playthrough, so we are going to go 100%, of course. Can't expect me not to. And the way we're actually going to work it through is essentially, so the way we're going to work this through is that in the main bulk of these episodes, so the first few episodes of each time, what we're going to do is we're just going to go through each level and collect the gems, essentially, and in later games, the crystals as well. And then afterwards, we're going to actually probably have some editing sort of versions with the relics. We'll probably do them maybe even level by level, because knowing some of these levels, it's going to take forever for me to actually get, the fastest time. And the way that's going to work is I'm probably just going to do some nice editing, hopefully, and try and actually showcase how many tries it takes me to get through each one. But we'll see how it goes. It could well take several, like certain relics are definitely going to take several hours worth of attempts just to sort of find like various rhythms and stuff. I like that hint because this is the first level that you get a TNT crate. This is Jungle Rollers, the second level, and a level that we cannot get the gem for. The reason we can't get the gem is because in certain levels you have separate paths. The paths are split up based on like certain paths are hidden away behind roots from coloured gems. So in certain levels we'll actually be able to find some coloured gems. I'm getting so much invincibility we can't actually hear the remastered music. Essentially, so certain routes will be hidden by coloured gems. So if you look here, this is a coloured gem platform. It's actually for the green gem, which we find in a later level called Lost City. So you need to get the green gem, come back here, and then this will actually take us up top. If you actually think it was just off screen, there's a bouncy box there. And that bouncy box allows us to collect the final few boxes in this level. So whilst we can't do that, what we can do is we can go into a Torna bonus round. So you can see we're collecting these little sort of heads. And so we actually get a trophy there, a trophy called... so the trophy, that trophy is for, in one level, spinning an enemy into another enemy twice. And is really easy to do, like you will do it in most of these levels. Just because a lot of the enemies are sort of stacked next to each other. But so the Torna bonus rounds. So as you can see, we're coming up to one here. So essentially, throughout each level, or throughout some of the levels, you have these sort of tokens of characters' faces. Some are Torna, some are Embryo, who we saw in the opening cutscene, and some are Cortex. And each of these had their own initial purpose in the original games. So the Torna rounds were how you saved the game. So back in yesteryear PlayStation 1, in order to save, you actually got a password, and the various passwords, with inputs on the on your controller would, and you'd have to remember the password in order to recover your save. And the way you got your password was you completed a Torna bonus round. So you collected three Torna tokens. You got taken to a bonus round. If you managed to complete the bonus round, you could get to here. Although that's really cool. I never knew that Cortex would actually take her away. That's great. So essentially you would then hit here and it would go to the save screen, and then you'd be able to save a game and get your password so that you can, save. In this game, what they are now is essentially they're just they're rooms for extra boxes, but they also give extra lives. Both Torna and Brio bonus rounds are usually full to the brim of lives, which means that we can very quickly gain lots and lots of lives. So there we go, we missed 3 boxes. So this screen here would always appear in if you completed a level without dying. So essentially, back in the original game, the game has been made slightly easier essentially, because in the original game you had to complete every level. In order to get the gem, you need to complete a level without dying and by breaking all the boxes in that level. So that would, so those checkpoints are completely useless to you in terms of getting gems, because you need to complete the whole level from start to finish without dying. And this game gets very, very difficult, it can be really difficult towards the end. But obviously the boxes inside the Torna and the Brio bonus rounds didn't count towards the total box count you needed for the gem. In this game, they've sort of swapped that around, so now the boxes inside all bonus rounds count. So Torna, Brio, Cortex, all of those bonus rounds count towards, as we actually still can't listen to the remastered music because of our invincibility. But no, all of those boxes count towards our gems, but instead you now don't need to complete each level perfectly whilst getting all the boxes in order to get the gem. And that sort of fits in with the decisions that were made in the later games in the series, because again, also in the later games in the series, you didn't need to get everything perfect. What's also nice is obviously we have a box counter. That was not in the original game. Indeed, in the in Crash 2, I believe, your box counter actually just told you how many boxes you had, and not actually the total amount of boxes. So you never actually knew if you were, unless you'd actually completed the level before, where it would tell you how many. You wouldn't actually know if you were actually, if you had all the boxes yet. So, we once again grab our Torna bonus round. So the Torna ones are generally pretty simple. Obviously, in many ways you can understand why. The game is trying to let you save in many ways. So they give you a sort of a minor challenge, but nothing too strenuous. And also, again, giving you a chance to get back some of the lives you'll inevitably have lost in the levels. The Brio rounds are much tougher, but reward you with more lives. And then the Cortex rounds have their own special purpose, which we'll talk about later. We also actually got a trophy. I know the trophies aren't actually coming up on the screen, but just so you know, there is also a trophy for entering your first bonus round. So collecting three, essentially, collecting three token faces, collecting 3 face tokens and entering the bonus round gives you another, will give you another trophy. So there's the Great Gate done, another level where we needed another gem in order to, a coloured gem in order to actually get the clear gem. Boulders, on the other hand, is a level where we can most certainly get the clear gem by ourselves, and it'll be interesting actually. I like that hint. So that hint is there because this is actually the first linear level in terms of it doesn't have the split path like Sanity Beach. It may well actually. This was probably the level I first got a gem on as well. Just back when I played. First time I ever played Crash. The original Crash. I think this was the first level I got a clear gem in. So obviously. Simple level. This was actually very faithfully recreated in terms of the actual PS1 version in Uncharted 4, which was quite cool. It's really nice sort of little homage to their previous work at Naughty Dog. So yeah, pretty simple level. Just run away from the boulder, avoid the various obstacles along the way. Now, it'll be interesting to see if that box. So you notice the boulder obviously destroyed one of the boxes. If that box counts, that means they've changed it from what it was in the original Crash 1. In the original Crash 1, boxes broken by the boulder did not count towards your total. Whereas in this one, they've changed it. So they've again matched it with Crash 2 and 3, where boxes broken by the things that chase you do count towards your box total, which is quite nice. That doesn't necessarily mean that they make it supremely easy. Yes, Crash. I mean, obviously, it's not quite the same as the victory dance. Obviously, we see the victory dance in later games. But no, it's not made exactly easy in the later games because quite often they'll include little obstacles that will cause the boulder or whatever's chasing you to sort of jump up in the air, so that even though you hope that it should be taking out all of the boxes, it doesn't actually take out all the boxes, and you're just like, why? So there you go. Collect 3 face tokens to unlock a bonus round is another thing. If you hadn't already, I guess, on Upstream. But I mean, if you're playing Crash, I mean, you've got to be just breaking everything, surely. Surely you've broken enough boxes. The difficulty definitely ramps up relatively fast. I'm not saying that this is a particularly difficult level, because it isn't, but I'm just saying that, these first few levels are up to, pretty much up to the first boss are all relatively simple until, and then after Papu Papu things start getting a little more taxing. And it just goes up from there. Interestingly, obviously this, I've mentioned before that this is most certainly the hardest game in the series. So in that case, things will actually sort of, if I start dying a lot, it doesn't mean that, it's far more that the game is difficult rather than... And if I die a lot in this game, doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to die a lot in the others. It does sound like I'm making excuses, though, I will say. So let's just try not die lots. We haven't died yet, which is quite, I'm quite happy about. But the game is relatively generous with its lives, which is always great. So you can see that certain levels, such as the boulder level, I believe, will actually take away any Aku-Akus you have. As you can see, there is the gem path we need. I think it's the gold gem we need for that one. And there is our Torna bonus round. The other nice thing about the bonus rounds is that they act as checkpoints. I'm pretty sure that's the case. Don't know why I'm making this harder for myself. But again, it should also be said that any deaths inside bonus rounds do not count. You do not lose lives. As in, yeah, they don't really count because you don't lose lives, and you also get the chance to retry them as many times as you want. The one thing that you can do from dying in a bonus round is you will lose your Aku. So if you fall down a pit and you had some Aku-Akus, then unfortunately you'll lose them if you die in that particular level, in that particular bonus round. So again, don't die in the bonus rounds, but it's often easier said than done. So I think this first episode we might as well get all the way to Papu Papu, who is the first boss. It's got an interesting character, I think. He only returns in Crash Team Racing, the racing game, which everyone, I think, what I found really amusing was people were hoping that CTR, Crash Team Racing would actually be a almost DLC for this game or something like that, just something extra. They want more Crash already, and it's like the game's hasn't even been out for 3 minutes and they're already demanding for more Crash, which I think is But I mean, CTR has its cult status for a reason. It is an amazing karter. I mean, that was my Mario Kart. I've played Mario Kart since, but I hadn't played a Mario Kart before I played Crash Team Racing, and since that, every single racing game I played sort of matched up against Crash Team Racing. That was the game that I played literally to death. Indeed, I might actually do some on this channel just for a bit of fun. I think I'll put some Mario Kart on the channel as well. But yeah, no, Crash Team Racing, what a game. And we'll see what happens. But I couldn't see really, be a very big thing to be just DLC. But anyway, that is going to be it for this first episode, except we have here Coco's time machine. So what's going on here? So do we want Coco to join the adventure? Yes, we do. Okay, so we can now actually swap to Coco on the fly, which is quite cool. Coco, obviously, so she can't do certain levels. So she can't do... Can she do boulders? She can do boulders. I'm guessing that she can't do bosses and maybe the hog levels. But she seems to be able to do everything else, which is quite cool. And I'm assuming she, will control just the same as Crash. But anyway, that is going to be it. So I hope you have enjoyed this first episode. I'm really just getting the chance to sort of dive back into this game is great. But certainly Rolling Stones, I've got some beef with that level, I will say, just from the future. Now it's fine, but I remember back being very young and being very, very rubbish at the game and being completely unable to do Rolling Stones. But anyway. So yeah, I hope you have enjoyed this episode, and I hope you will join me on the next.